Fun. The Brady Farkas Show is produced and funded by WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group. We welcome listener feedback. Email your comments to wdev@radiovermont.com.
The energy. How does anybody live and drive in Boston every single day? This guy stopped in the middle of the road with his hazard lights on. This guy won't yield. That guy won't let you go. That guy passes in front of you. That guy goes 3 lanes of traffic all in one shot. How does anybody do this? The passion. Look, if the Red Sox aren't going to play Yoshida and Devers as they're about to get swept, then we might as well just give up and go home. The opinions on all your favorite teams. I'm glad that Mac Jones looks better. That's really important. He needs to look better. But if it were a video game, he'd still have an overall rating of 76, and that ain't cutting it. This is the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
What's up, everybody? Brady Farkas Show back at it here on a full show Monday on WDEV, AM and FM, and WDEVradio.com. All 90 minutes are at our disposal today. No Red Sox baseball. Sox back at it tomorrow after dropping 2 of 3 against the White Sox over the weekend. They will take on the Marlins beginning tomorrow at Fenway Park. So we have all 90 minutes again. We go up until 7 o'clock, and then it's Jazz with George Thomas. We're brought to you by Fecto Homes, your total home solution in Montpelier. You can watch our show on video on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and you can see the giant Fecto Homes banner right behind me as well. Appreciate their partnership in the show. You can also get in on the Air Auto text line, 802-585-3026. That is AirAutoSales.com. They're on North Main Street in Barrie. They take care of you from a buying car perspective and also from taking care of car perspective. Again, AirAutoSales.com. John Becker, that's what I want to tell you. A little housekeeping. John Becker, UVM men's basketball coach, is going to be with us here at 6:10. We'll talk about the Catamounts offseason and want to find out a little bit more about the schedule if we can, see about what's coming next year in Catamount country. Just kind of our check-in here on the men's basketball program. We'll get to him again at about 6:10.
3, 2, 1.
The opening thoughts on the Brady Farkas Show are brought to you by Sticks and Stuff and by Swanton Lumber, Vermont's most complete locally owned home center with locations in Enosburg, Derby, Middlesex, St. Albans, and at Swanton Lumber. Remember, also coming to Rouse's Point, New York. They're online at sticksandstuff.com. Before I get into what happened with the Bruins today, I'm taking a little poll, okay? A little poll. If you're in a position to text in on the Air Auto text line, 802-585-3026, just let me know. I am curious, how many people out there really like thunderstorms? Okay. Now, again, I'm in a windowless studio. I believe we've had some thunderstorms in Waterbury. I know, based on Roger's forecast, we've had some serious thunderstorms in the Essex Junction, Jericho region, etc. So some of you have gotten it and have gotten it pretty good today. I'm also putting the qualifier out there. As long as everyone is safe, right? I know lightning is serious. I know that thunderstorms are very, very dangerous. I'm under the assumption here in my scenario that everyone is safe. Do you like thunderstorms? Because I got to tell you, again, with that qualifier, I love them. Okay? I absolutely love thunderstorms. I'm intrigued by them. I'm fascinated by them. I love a good downpour. I like the clap of thunder. I enjoy thunderstorms. They don't scare me. They don't worry me. Again, as long as everyone's okay, as long as my house isn't struck by lightning, all that kind of stuff, I enjoy a good thunderstorm. I also enjoy rain, period. And I know that that makes me weird, but like as long as I don't have something to do that I need good weather for, I do not mind rain. I love the sound of rain. I love falling asleep to the rain. I will put on an app on my phone and fall asleep to rain sounds. I find it very, very relaxing. I find it very, very soothing. I have no bother with rain in general as long as it doesn't rain out something that I want to do, a game, a concert, etc. And I love thunderstorms. Absolutely love them. So 802-585-3026. Peter says, I can't deal with Boston drivers who don't use their turn directional. He's responding to not the question at hand, but my intro there that was new-ish last week or so. So that's what Peter is responding to. But yeah, Peter, do you like thunderstorms? That's what I want to know, because I'm kind of lamenting the fact that I couldn't hear the thunderstorms here in Waterbury if we got them, and I couldn't hear them in other places. Up in Essex where I've lived. Texter now says, I don't enjoy thunderstorms. They make me uneasy because of the uneasiness in the atmosphere. Rain is important. You're from Seattle. Of course you love rain. That's probably part of it. But here's a little secret. I only lived in Seattle until I was 6. Okay. Like I didn't live most of my life in Seattle. I just lived the earliest part of my life in Seattle. So I remember going to the games, and I remember the teams, and I remember my earliest favorite players all being Seattle athletes. Maybe that's why I'm okay with the rain, but I moved from when I was 6. It wasn't like I grew up my whole life in Seattle. I just feel comfort in the rain. It doesn't bother me at all. Again, I will fall asleep. If I'm not falling asleep to TV, I will throw rain sounds, water sounds, ocean sounds on my phone app and just play it. Put it on like a 30-minute timer, fall asleep. That might be weird, but that's what I do. Speaking of the rain, okay, now we're getting more text in. Charlie says lightning and thunderstorms are most excellent. Yeah, again, provided everyone's okay, they are excellent. I find them fascinating. I find them cool. I find them fun. Again, they're real dangerous. I get that, but I do not mind a good thunderstorm at all. We did get some rain, no thunderstorms, luckily, on this front on Saturday. I was at the Not Quite Independence Day parade in Waterbury, and let me tell you a little bit about what happened here. So Not Quite Independence Day is Waterbury's observation of July 4th. My assumption is that because the bigger communities do July 4th on July 4th, but also on July 3rd, Waterbury said, okay, how can we distinguish ourselves? How can we do something in our town that people will actually come to? So they decided to put Not Quite Independence Day together, and it happens, a little bit before Independence Day. So it was this past Saturday, and someone asked me if I was going. And I said, yeah, I'm going to go. Food trucks, there's music there, they had fireworks. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to come down to Waterbury. I'm going to spend all day in Waterbury. Well, apparently that word got out, and then the higher-ups at Not Quite Independence Day reached out to me like, hey, we heard you're coming. Do you want to be a part of the festivities? And I was like, well, okay, I can't, I'm coming anyways. I'm not going to, disrespect the town that employs me. It's a cool event. I'm looking forward to going. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll help out. So I get down there, and it's raining, but it's not pouring, and there's clearly a lot of people that are still going to be there. And they're like, hey, we're going to have you judge the parade. I'm like, well, judge the parade? What are we talking about? They're like, well, best theme, best float, this, that, the other, best kids parade thing. Oh, okay, fine. And then they asked me if I wanted to MC the thing. I'm like, well, hey, this gone from hey, I'm just coming to now I'm going to MC the thing. And I got to tell you, I MC'd it. I don't think people think I'm as funny as I think I am sometimes. I thought I had all I can do with that thing is, hey, here's if I played it straight, I'd be like, hey, here's the parade, and this float is from Waterbury True Value. Woo! And this float is from the Berlin Fire Department. Woo! So I'm throwing out little one-liners. I'm asking the fire trucks to honk the horn. I'm talking about how the little kids are more talented than me and this, that, and the other. I thought I was hilarious, given I had to do stand-up comedy, but I didn't get very many laughs. Apparently, I wasn't as funny as I thought I was. There's a lot of pressure to MC a parade. Because, again, I'm trying to give it a little more than and here comes the Moortown Fire Unit. Woo! I'm trying to give it a little more than that. So I try to throw some one-liners, be a little self-deprecating. It didn't quite land the way I wanted it to. It was a lot of fun, but I think I was only having fun with myself. I did get a couple looks from people driving who appreciated some of my humor, but that's about it. So if you were at Not Quite Independence Day, I hope you heard me. I hope you had a good time. And I had a blast. It was a great event. I would gladly do it again in the future. Just, again, I guess I don't have a career in stand-up comedy destined for. Joe says, Williston got some good thunderstorms today, 20 minutes or so. I love a good old thunderstorm. I love weather in general. Yes, I love weather in general, too. I don't love massive heat and massive humidity, but, I can put up with it if I had to. But, I don't love that. That's my least favorite weather. I can deal with cold temperatures. I can deal with snow. I can deal with thunderstorms. I don't love, 85 with 85% humidity. That's not really for me. But, again, that's also dangerous, but I can put up with it provided we have proper hydration, etc. All right, let's really get into the show because this news broke right before the afternoon news service. The Boston Bruins have made a trade this offseason now, and it's a big trade. And it's not a trade that's going to make the team better in the short term. It's a trade that's going to make them worse. The Boston Bruins have traded Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno to the Chicago Blackhawks, and in exchange, they have gotten back a couple of younger prospects, a 24-year-old and a 22-year-old. Okay? And this is a deal that's essentially a salary dump. The Bruins aren't retaining any salary. They're not taking on any new salary. The Bruins are trading Taylor Hall. They are trading Nick Foligno, and they have traded them to the Chicago Blackhawks. And now they're going to pair with likely number one pick Connor Bedard. I mean, likely. It's like Wembanyama. He's going to be the number one pick. So they're going to a rebuilding team, but with an exciting soon-to-be prospect, and the Bruins are getting younger and getting cheaper. Let me explain this to you, and I make no bones about it. I am not Mr. Hockey, and I'm certainly not Mr. Hockey on June 26th, right? I'm a little out of practice on my Bruins hockey stuff. But what did I tell you at the end of the regular season and leading into the playoffs? That the Boston Bruins had pressure on them to win the Stanley Cup. Everyone was like, oh, Brady, they got pressure, but it's all external. They got to live up to history, and they got to win the cup because they set the record. I'm like, no. The Bruins needed to win the cup because there's no guarantee that that record-breaking team would be able to stay together, and that's what we're seeing now. Okay? The Boston Bruins, everybody that was like putting pressure on the Bruins from the outside, that to me paled in comparison to the internal pressure on the Bruins to win while this team was together, because there was a good chance that it wasn't going to be able to stay together. And here we are, 2 months after the Bruins lose in the playoffs, this team is broken up. Okay, this is not a good thing. The Bruins have a lot of issues now, salary-wise, they have to attend to, and there's going to be more potential for this team to get worse. Okay, Hall is gone. He was good. Foligno was gone. He was good. Now you've got Bergeron, who's got free agency stuff. You got Swayman, who's got free agency stuff. This team has a lot of questions now. Okay, they were a record-setting team. Their core that they want to keep is now older, which is always bad. And now they have gotten rid of some of their core. That also is bad. With this, you can't overcome injuries as well. Your depth is challenged, right? You lost Foligno off the fourth line. You've lost Hall as a guy who can be a second-line player for you. First-line player on certain teams in this league, maybe even Chicago. So Hall's gone. Foligno's gone. Some of your depth is gone. Now you've got an older Bergeron if you bring him back, an older Krejci if you bring him back, an older Marchand if you bring him back. And now those guys aren't there to fill in should something happen to them. This is troublesome for the Boston Bruins. I'm not here to tell you they're going to fall off a cliff, but the idea that they could just replicate what they did a season ago and be right back in the thick of things for the Stanley Cup, I'm not necessarily buying that either. These are big losses. Taylor Hall is a very, very good player. Nick Foligno was a very useful player for you this season. I hate giving up established talent. I'm usually Mr. Build for the future, but you go get a couple of prospects, they're not helping you this year. I'm reading about, hey, these guys got to spend time in Providence, and I'm like, that might be good for 4 years from now. That's not good for today. Patrice Bergeron needs to win another title today. Brad Marchand needs to win another title today. This team this year was so much in the now that I don't want to be thinking about the future. Usually I'm all for the future, setting up the future. No, for the Bruins, the future, like this is now, like this is it. And last season, the pressure was all internal because if you didn't win it, then the roster had a chance to maybe not be gutted, but had a chance to be reshaped. And that's what we're seeing right now. Now, the money that you save in letting Taylor Hall go can help you bring back Tyler Bertuzzi, probably, who's younger by 4 years. It's important to bring back Bertuzzi, and Bertuzzi was really good after they got him from Detroit last year at the trade deadline. So I'm for bringing back Bertuzzi, but I don't know that it's necessarily just a one-for-one swap. Like, hey, we lost Hall, but we got Bertuzzi, and hey, we're just as good. No, the team continued to be good having both of those players. And I know Hall was hurt for some of the back half of the year, but the whole team unit had Hall and Bertuzzi and Foligno, and now Hall's gone, Foligno's gone, and even if you do keep Bertuzzi, I don't know that you're as good. And then the other guys are older, more likely to get injured, and you run the risk of falling from record-setting greatness to, well, now you're equivalent to a 3 or a 4 seed, and you can still win. We've seen what Florida did. You could still win like that in hockey, but it's not as easy. And it becomes difficult, and I am not for difficult. I am not for difficult. And here we go. I want everybody to know I just did 5 minutes on hockey in June, and I have not one text. Okay? Not one text on hockey in June. I just want everybody to know that. So when you come to me and say again, Brady, I really want you to talk hockey more, this is why. Okay? This is why, truthfully, I don't get into hockey that much, because people aren't talking about it. Okay? The text line, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, my Twitter account, you're all crickets right now. I got 5 things on thunderstorms and 1 on Boston drivers and none on the Bruins trade. Oh, but Brady, we really want you to talk hockey. I'd really love for you to talk more Bruins. Well, where are you, people? I got hockey in June here for you. And not even the diehards are here for it. Now we get a texter. Thank you. Thanks for hockey talk. The trade just happened. Okay. That should be even more of a reaction. We're all talking about it and processing it together. I didn't get wind of the trade 5 days ago. I got wind of the trade 90 minutes ago, just like you did. I'm reacting in real time also. We can all process it together. We can all talk about it together. I do like Bertuzzi, and I want the team to keep Bertuzzi. And you gave up a first-round pick to get Bertuzzi, so it's important to keep him. I'm 1,000% for that. But you lose Hall, you lose Foligno, now you got an older core. It's not as easy as like, hey, we're just going to run it back and we're going to be as good as we were a year ago and we're going to get another bite at the apple here. You're going to get another bite at the apple, but it's going to come, likely at a more increased cost, right? A lower seed, a tougher regular season. It's not all going to be as easy as it was last year because you've had to make some now real cost-cutting moves, and the Bruins may not be done. The Bruins may not be done having to slash salary. Maybe they don't want to bring back Bergeron. Maybe they can't afford to bring back Bergeron. Maybe they can't afford to bring back Krejci. I don't know. But there might be more to come on this. Tom Caron of Nesson will join us on Wednesday. We'll talk baseball with him. We're also going to talk hockey. Milo in North Troy goes, as far as salary dump, I feel this is just the start. A lot of money to dump yet. Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, you look at it here. I had my list earlier. It's not on this sheet here, but again, Bergeron, Krejci, Swayman, they all are either restricted or unrestricted free agents. Right there, that's 3 pretty critical parts of your team. And I understand that, Swayman is in a partnership at goalie, but he's still a big part of your team. You certainly need him in the regular season. Let me see if I can pull up the contracts here for the Bruins, because there's multiple other pieces here that I'm missing that are coming up on free agency. Let's see. I'm trying to see. Yeah, oh, here you go. This will be it. Orlov, he's a free agent. Bergeron, Bertuzzi, Hathaway, who you acquired this year. Trent Frederick, Connor Clifton, I know, yeah, okay, doesn't play that much. That's kind of where we're at for the guys who really impact your team, but that's a lot of them. Orlov, Bergeron, Bertuzzi, Hathaway, Chris Wagner, Frederick, Swayman. There's Krejci. There's a lot of stuff going on there. Those are just free agents that you might not bring back. Nevertheless, the guys on your team that have huge deals already, right? You look at, okay, Pasternak, who you re-signed. You got McAvoy to a big deal. You got Lindholm to a big deal. You still got Marchand. Coyle is on a good deal. So is Carlo. Pavel Zacha, Grzelcyk. Like, there's a lot of guys who are making some significant money. Jake DeBrusk is only making $4 million a year. Not everybody's like that. So Milo's right. There could be more dumps to come. Bruins are going to make more moves. This trade was predicted by the Boston Globe. Hall is a loss, but it's more stuff to come. Bruins learned that they don't need to be number one. It's a good point. Florida showed us, right? You don't have to be the top seed, but I'm also not in favor of making my life much, much more difficult. Texter wants to know when Coach Becker is coming on, talking UVM hoops. 6:10. John Becker going to be with us at 6:10. We will stick on the basketball side of things here on the other side of the commercial break. Speaking of trades, Kristaps Porzingis obviously was traded to the Celtics last week. He had a choice between the Celtics and this team, and he chose Boston. We'll talk about his decision. We'll do it next on the Brady Farkas Show, brought to you by Fecto Homes on DEV.
DEV Studio is sponsored by Sticks and Stuff and Swanton Lumber, Vermont's largest independent home center, powered by Marvin Doors and Windows. Go to sticksandstuff.com for store locations and hours.
WDEV is Vermont's preeminent news station. For 92 years, we've been at the forefront of reporting local, state, regional, and national news for listeners in Vermont. We're looking for that next generation newscaster to continue our legacy of excellence. Apply now by sending your materials to scormier@radiovermont.com. For job description and duties, log on to WDEVradio.com. WDEV and the Radio Vermont Group is an equal opportunity employer.
If it eats and grows, Guy's Farm and Yard Stores can feed it well. For your garden and plants, come to Guy's and find all the soils, mulches, and compost. They'll grow better with Guy's. Now for your pets. Good pet food makes all the difference in your pet's health and happiness. That's why Guy's Farm and Yard carries the popular pet foods from Fromm, Signature, and Earthborn, just to name a few. Where else? Guy's Farm and Yard Stores. Portland Street, Morrisville, Berry Street, Montpelier, Taft Corners, Williston, and Fairfax Road in St. Albans. And at guysfarmandyard.com.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the whoops. And now a speech.
I just want to say that friendship is about heart and brain. Who's with me?
Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy.
Me too.
Know your buzz warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You don't plan for a computer virus. You don't plan to lose files. You don't plan to knock your laptop off the counter. And you don't plan for your PC to crash or your screen to freeze. But Staples has a plan. A plan for unlimited virus protection. A plan for help when you need it 24/7. Staples Total Support Plans are your tech plans for the unplanned, starting as low as $199.99. And although you didn't plan for this, right now at Staples you can also get $250 off select computers. N729 in-store only. See associate for details.
This is David Goodman. Join me every Wednesday at 1 o'clock for the Vermont Conversation, brought to you by VTDigger.org, Vermont's nonprofit news source. I'll talk with national and local change makers from the worlds of politics, social and racial justice, science, education, and the environment who are having an impact on our daily lives. You can also hear the Vermont Conversation at VTDigger.org or sign up for our podcast. Join me and take part in the Vermont Conversation Wednesdays at 1 here on WDEV.
Think you know sports better than Brady does? Text in with your thoughts at 802-585-3027.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show, right here on DEV. John Becker, UVM basketball coach, be with us here in about 15 minutes, right at about 6:10. Coach Becker will join us. Our first check-in with him since the season ended. Remember, the Catamounts were beaten last year in the NCAA tournament by Marquette. Interesting news came out today. Kristaps Porzingis actually had some choices in where he was going to be traded last week. Porzingis, remember, here was the situation. He had a $36 million player opt-in deal, right? So he could opt out, and he could have opted out and become a free agent, or he could have opted into the $36 million deal and been traded and play on the last year of his deal at $36 million. That's ultimately what he decided to do, but he chose the Boston Celtics over the Utah Jazz, which I thought was interesting. It's not something that I had heard previously reported. Kurt Heelan over at Pro Basketball Talk had that message out earlier today that Porzingis had a chance to go to Utah with Danny Ainge, former Celtics executive, and ultimately chose Boston. He was only going to opt into that deal to be traded to come to the Celtics. He was not going to opt in to go to Utah. Makes sense for a bunch of different reasons, I think. One, Celtics are closer to winning a championship. Okay, Utah is a team that's in a rebuild. Now, they played better last year than I think a lot of people expected, right? They were in the hunt for the playoffs all year long. They traded Gobert and Donovan Mitchell and still were right on the cusp of at least the play-in for the entirety of the season. They actually started out really, really well last year before fading. So they're better than people think, but, they're still much further than the Celtics. So Porzingis gets a chance to come to Boston where he's closer to a championship. He's closer to Latvia, and I understand when you're talking about a world away, it's still a world away. But Boston is easier to get to, fly easier to Latvia. People want to see him, can be easier to home. It's just an easier situation for him flying into Boston to go anywhere in the world to being in Salt Lake City. So I would have to imagine that's appealing. Also, he gets to come to Boston and he gets to play with stars rather than have to be the star. If he's in Utah, he's counted on to be the best player or the second best player. In Boston, he's counted on to be the third player on this team. So there's certainly less pressure for him, which, I'd have to think is appealing. I am mildly surprised, though, just in this regard. You're going to a situation where Porzingis is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I could have seen a world where he wanted to play on a worse Utah team, be the best player, put up stats and get his money, right? Put himself in a position to get better money. I have to imagine he's hampered his earning potential by going to Boston. Because if he goes to Utah and averages 25 a game, that's better than come to Boston and averaging 18 a game, which is what he could very well do here for the Celtics. So I give him credit for not just choosing a spot that's going to put him in the best financial situation. Better team in Boston, better supporting cast, or in this case, he's the supporting cast. Easier to navigate to his homeland across the world, or for people to navigate to him. That's certainly a good thing as well. And he's back in the Eastern Conference where he spent most of his career. I don't know how much that necessarily matters to players, but at least the familiarity, I would think, is a good thing. Okay? It may not be a huge thing, but I would think at least is a good thing. He started with the Knicks, he's played in Washington, and now he's with the Celtics. He did spend that little run in Dallas, so he has had experience in the West, but he knows the arenas better, he knows the cities better, he knows the hotels better, he knows the travel better, he knows the opponents better, and there's just a better familiarity there, and I would think that that's something that is welcome, right? Just the idea of some familiarity. So I'm glad from a basketball standpoint that Porzingis chose Boston. I still would rather have Marcus Smart at all, but it's not the case. So I'll move on and I'll start talking about this team in the context of having Kristaps Porzingis. So I'm glad he wanted to come here. I'm glad he chose Boston over Utah. And now we'll roll from here, and you'll hear a little bit later in the show from Brad Stevens, who talked about kind of where the Celtics are at right now. We'll play that for you in the 6 o'clock hour. Couple other things then back on the Bruins. Texter says this: there's a chance they could trade Linus Ullmark. If Swayman signs a big offer sheet, it's not likely, as it forces the Bruins' hand. No guarantee Bergeron or Krejci come back. I think they do, but they'll be a contender next year. They will be a contender. The Bruins will be a contender. I don't mean to say they're going to go from historically great to out of the playoffs because they don't have Taylor Hall. They're still going to be a contender, but the road gets tougher when you have a less good regular season and when you are cash strapped and you have to make the decisions based on money, which is what the Bruins are doing right now and the position they're setting themselves up for. That's all. They will still be good, but how good is good and how easy or difficult does their road become? We'll have to find out. John Becker, UVM men's basketball coach, going to come with us next after the CBS News update here on DEV.
WDEV, Vermont's Station, owned and operated by the Radio Vermont Group. From the top of Sugarbush, 96.1 FM WDEV Warren and Westfield, 96.5 W243 Barrie, 98.3 W252 CU Montpelier, along with our founding station, AM 550 WDEV Waterbury Montpelier, streaming at WDEVradio.com. 91 years of serving Vermont, the friendly pioneer, WDEV.
This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Indeed.com.
I'm Monica Ricks in New York. Rebels with the Wagner Group who aborted a rebellion this weekend in Russia are now defending their actions. Leader Yevgeny Prigozhin spoke through an interpreter.
It was peaceful. We did not aim to overthrow the existing regime, nor the legitimate power, and we turned back so that we would not spill the blood of Russian soldiers.
President Putin also weighed in. We get his reaction from CBS's Skylar Henry.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said the leaders of this weekend's armed rebellion betrayed their country and pushed them towards death and hopes Russians would kill each other. He went on to praise soldiers from the mercenary Wagner Group for not entering Moscow. He promised they would not be punished and could join the Russian army.
The U.S., meantime, has distanced itself from the mutiny, but President Biden says it will continue to support Ukraine. People are sweating it out again this week in Texas, where a brutal heat wave could break power records as more people jack up their ACs to stay cool. Austin Emergency Management Director Ken Snipes.
We encourage Austinites to stay hydrated, stay cool, and stay safe during these conditions.
A tornado caused significant damage last night in Johnson County, Indiana. People there say it was scary.
I want to reiterate what this. All of a sudden you look out your back door and all of a sudden you see a tornado coming toward the ground.
It was overwhelming to see your house and see the outside and know that you were just sitting there and you could have been dead.
At least one person was killed in that storm. 2 people died in Arkansas.
To those 5 counts of murder in the first degree, how do you plead? Guilty.
A 23-year-old will spend the rest of his life behind bars for killing 5 people at a gay nightclub in Colorado. District Attorney Michael Allen.
I want to reiterate what this plea agreement is and what it means. 5 consecutive life sentences. 1 life sentence for each murder victim.
The plea spares victims' families and survivors from that night from going through a long trial. The makers of Ozempic are working on a new pill for weight loss. Dr. Celine Gounder.
Some of the pills we might see as early as within the next year. Some may take longer. The orforglipron is probably going to take a bit longer to get through phase 3 trials.
They are expected to be a lot cheaper, though, than those popular shots. More than 2 million Muslims are now taking part in this week's Hajj pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca in Saudi Arabia. It's one of the world's largest religious gatherings, and Muslims are encouraged to do it at least once in their lives, since the experience is said to wipe away sins and bring them closer to God. It's returning to full capacity for the first time since the pandemic. This is CBS News.
Find great hires fast with Indeed. Their end-to-end hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates all in the same place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the whoops. And now a speech.
I just want to say that friendship is about heart and brain. Who's with me?
Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy.
Me too.
Know your buzz warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
You don't plan for a computer virus. You don't plan to lose files. You don't plan to knock your laptop off the counter. And you don't plan for your PC to crash or your screen to freeze. But Staples has a plan. A plan for unlimited virus protection. A plan for help when you need it 24/7. Staples Total Support Plans are your tech plans for the unplanned, starting as low as $199.99. And although you didn't plan for this, right now at Staples you can also get $250 off select computers. N729 in store only. See associate for details.
It was an emotional night for Elton John last night.
Closing the famed Glastonbury Music Festival. Around 20,000 festival goers, many wearing wild outfits and makeup in tribute, all singing along to the Elton John song.
I'm doing it.
This was the 76-year-old's final UK date on what he insists will be his final farewell tour, which winds up in Sweden next month. Vicky Barker, CBS News, London.
Last night's BET Awards honored 50 years of hip-hop. Busta Rhymes got a Lifetime Achievement Award. Migos performed for the first time since Takeoff's death. And Patti LaBelle paid a rocky tribute to Tina Turner.
What if I can't see the words? I don't know.
Oh, she's still getting a lot of flack today on social media for forgetting those lyrics. Monica Ricks, CBS News.
Your chance to be part of the show is on the text line at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com. We're going to have John Becker, the UVM men's basketball coach, with us here in about 5 minutes. I am really jonesing for some UVM basketball news. I'm like, and it's weird because I enjoy summer, right? Like baseball is my favorite sport. You all know this. That's well apparent to everybody here. I love baseball. I never want to rush away baseball season. I never want baseball to go away. But lately I have found myself really in the mood for some UVM basketball news. And I'm really excited to see about what this team does. And we're going to talk to Coach Becker about some of the new guys and the transfers and the freshmen, et cetera. We're going to get the skinny on all things off season right now. But I think this UVM team has a chance to be pretty good. And they always have a chance to be pretty good. And they always are pretty good. That's not really rocket science or groundbreaking reporting to say that. But I feel very good about where this team is at right now. I just feel very good about where this team is at right now. I like the guys they've brought in. I like the freshmen that they brought in. There's this kid, Seth Joba, big guy out of Buffalo area, who I like, who I think has a chance to be more productive than some of the younger big guys they brought in last year who have since left, like George Ochoa and Perry Smith Jr. So I just feel good about where this team is at. I feel good about their place in the conference. I feel good about the players they've got. And I'm looking forward to the season ahead already. And I don't usually get the basketball munchies here until we really start to get into September. Here we are, June 26th, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. So, I think, look, this is a UVM team that does have a lot of questions. Vin Sullivan gone, player of the year in the league gone. Dylan Penn, most outstanding player of the tournament gone. Robin Duncan, your best leader, gone. I mean, that's three significant pieces that are gone from your roster. Okay, three huge pieces. Then you went and lost two more in the transfer portal. So it's not easy here what UVM has to do, but I just feel good about where they're at. Maybe I always feel good in June. I also want to know about the schedule. It's one thing we're going to have to talk to Coach Becker about, because the schedule, we haven't gotten a whole lot of breadcrumbs on this. We know that they're playing Yale. We know they're playing Merrimack. We know they're playing Colgate. We know those three games are all at home. That kind of came out earlier today. But beyond that, we don't know a whole lot of anything. And I feel like we haven't gone this deep into an offseason without having some sense of where things are at. Like I remember a couple of years ago when it got announced that they were playing Kentucky, and then the one year they were playing Kansas. I feel like we learned that very, very early. Haven't learned things very early in this offseason. We got John Becker right now, I guess, a little bit early. So joining us now is the UVM men's basketball coach of the Catamounts. Last time we saw him, UVM was playing in the NCAA tournament against Marquette, where they fell in that matchup in the tournament, but still a productive season nonetheless for the Catamounts. They won another America East championship game on their home floor. I was there, of course. I'm always at those championship games. Coach Becker is with us now. Hope you've had a great off season. How are you?
Well, it's certainly been good to a couple of different people in the Catamount family. Let me start with the good news from last week, rather. Your former player, Justin Mazzulla, put on the coaching staff of the Utah Jazz. We know his brother's the head coach of the Celtics and got them to the Eastern Conference Finals. But Justin Mazzulla, grad year at URI, coaching this year, now with the Utah Jazz. Did you see this in him when he was playing for you?
Oh, yeah. He always knew he was going to be get into coaching and be a great coach. And, I talked to him quite a bit last year. And as he, was trying to transition into the NBA and got on in a really good spot with a really good organization in Utah. And so he's really excited. He just flew out a couple of days ago. I talked to him the night before he left, and, he's really excited. That's awesome. And then TJ Hurley, your player, is going to be entering his sophomore year, playing for the Canadian under-19 national team right now. This is a prestigious tournament, a prestigious team. RJ Barrett's been a star on this team before. How does that work in terms of how he gets picked, conversations with you about it? What does that look like? Yeah, I mean, it's a long process. It's really hard to make any national team, especially one like Canada, where there's so many good players. And and he got invited to try out, it was a long process. He went out for a weekend in the spring, kind of advanced to the next round, and then he's been working with, they played this weekend in the World Cup, but there's been exhibition games the prior few weekends, and they were still deciding on the team at that point, so it was pretty stressful. I mean, he was on that 15-man roster, but there was other guys that they were trying to invite at the last minute, and so the fact that he made that team is a really big deal. And then I watched both the games this weekend, and he got good playing time, and it's going to be a great experience for him, and we have really, really high expectations for him, and especially moving into a sophomore year. We've heard you talk a lot about the transfer portal and the positives to it and the negatives to it. You kind of lose guys like TJ Hurley, right? Like, I think you like the bringing the guys as freshmen, develop them for 4 years, see them grow and get a little bit better each year. You kind of lose that in the portal. That's why I think, we fans are excited to see TJ Hurley this year, because he's one of the few guys like that's left. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to find that balance between, bringing freshmen in, high school kids, developing them, for culture reasons and just for continuity reasons. And then, complement our roster with transfers. The last 2 seasons, we knew with the COVID and just with the COVID year, guys were getting that we were going to have a couple of years where we were going to lose quite a few guys. And so, last year we were able to figure it out and win another championship. This year's another year where we have 8 new guys on the roster. And so we're really excited. The nice thing about this year's group of transfers is they all have 2 years, except Brenton Mills. And then we have, 2 freshmen scholarship guys, 2 freshmen walk-ons. And so, I feel really good about the balance of experience and some talented young guys. And so my challenge is going to be keeping everyone happy. I'm going to ask you about the new guys in a minute, but let's talk about one of the veterans, and that's Aaron Deloney. How important was it to get him back in the program? I mean, yes, your team needs guards and needs scoring, but also from a leadership perspective, how important was it to get AD back? Yeah, I mean, I think he was, kind of the best addition we had out of the portal, kind of in a weird way, because he went in and then came back out. And it's a big deal for us. And like you said, the basketball part of it, we know. But the leadership part, the culture piece is really important. So this is going to be AD's team. I think Nick and Matt will be the other leaders on this team, but really AD have challenged with, providing what Robin did last year. And everyone has a different leadership style. I'm not asking him to be Robin at all. But what I am asking him is to take on the huge responsibility of helping 8 new players assimilate to our program, help those guys along, and be selfless in that approach. And he did a great job this spring and into the summer here, and we're excited. We're kicking off our summer program after a week of camp that just started today, but he's done a great job, and I have all the confidence in the world he's going to do a great job leading us this year. You guys were making a run at the end of the first half against Marquette in the NCAA tournament. Deloney gets called for what I have called the worst foul in the history of basketball. Do you believe it was the worst call you've ever seen, Coach? It wasn't great. And, yeah. It is what it is, and you got to be able to overcome that. And I thought, like you said, in that Marquette game, I thought we fought hard. In the second half, we had it do a couple possession game. We just couldn't make enough shots. But you got to credit Marquette. But that was tough for AD. John Becker, UVM basketball coach, with us here on the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com.
On the scheduling front, we know you're going to the Myrtle Beach Classic. I keep wanting to call it the Charleston Classic. Invitational.
Invitational, yep.
And it's a really good field. Teams that have been to the tournament in the last couple of years, really, really cool. We've seen you down in the Bahamas before. How exactly do you go about picking a tournament? Do you get invited? Do you seek out something different? How does that go?
Yeah, this one we got invited to. It's an ESPN event, so the games will be on, ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, I think someone ESPN News, but it will be on TV, so to speak, and so it's a pretty big deal, and so we're really excited about that opportunity. We've got involved with this BD Global group that puts on the tournament in Florida, in Fort Myers, that we've been in a couple times, the one in Bahamas, and so that one is, is get invited, but we've done well in their tournaments, and so we've kind of cycled through it. You only can play it in every 4 years, the same tournament every 4 years, so we've been in that one the last 2 times that we could have in that tournament. And then we get invited into these tournaments, and my goal is always try to get the one that has the most TV exposure, and I think I know this Myrtle Beach Invitational, as far as that goes, ESPN is very selective on who they invite to their events, and so we feel honored to be part of the Myrtle Beach Invitational this year.
When I first saw the release on it, I assumed it was a Thanksgiving tournament, but it's actually a little earlier than that. It's more kind of a kickoff tournament, isn't it?
Well, it's that feast week, I think they call it now, ESPN, that whole week of Thanksgiving, there's different tournaments, and so this one, you're right, is on the front end of Thanksgiving week, and so that would be good. We might actually be home for Thanksgiving. It's been a while since we've been in Burlington for Thanksgiving, so our schedule still is fluid, so I don't want to, I'm not sure, but hopefully we'll be back for Thanksgiving and be able to, host the guys at the house like I've done, every time we're in town.
Lisa Kresge told me last week that they have not signed one contract yet for any games non-conference on the women's side. How are you guys doing in terms of getting the regular season schedule non-conference done?
Yeah, that's what happens. When you win a championship, it gets a lot harder to schedule. So we're doing okay. We're doing a little bit better than we have in the past. Still haven't been able to secure any games against high major teams, to buy games, and working through that. But we have, I think, 3 more games we need to schedule. Northeastern is back on the schedule, which is good. Our Colgate and Brown series have been extended. We'll continue to have Yale and Dartmouth like we've had, and so we're getting closer. We're just hoping that we can play as many games in the Northeast that we can, especially these series, for budget reasons. And I've worked a lot closer with Jeff Schulman this year in trying to figure out the best approach to our scheduling, because we never want to put ourselves in a position that we were last year, where we only had 2 home games in the non-conference. We were on the road for 19 out of 21 days in November, and just from a wear and tear on the guys and that part of it, but also things have gotten a lot more expensive, and for budget reasons, we've got to be, hopefully we can start to play bus trip games that were in the bus trip, and where we can go down and back, and for those reasons, clean up our schedule a little bit. But it's hard, it's hard, and it's at the coach's discretions at these schools, and so getting people to play is a challenge, especially when you've had some success.
You talked last year a lot about the guys being, wear and tear. We talked a lot about that last year. I also was curious, just how much did the lack of, what I presume is lack of practice time, impact your team early in the season last year? When you're constantly on a plane, it's very difficult, I imagine, to work on some of the nuanced things you needed to work on. How much did that play into last year's early season struggles?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Brady, and that was a big part of it. You just don't get the practice time, and when you do, it's not quality practice time. And so with a team that had so many new players last year, and then we had, Nick gets hurt, it was challenging, and so we talked about this year early in the year, because we know we'll have a lot of new guys again this year, hopefully spacing out games early in the year. In the first couple of weeks of the game, we were playing every 4 days or 5 days instead of it seemed like every day. the last couple of years. And so really trying to work into the schedule and have most of our games, more of our games in December, where the last few years it just seems like, it's front loaded in November, and then in December games are spaced out. Try to flip that a little bit the best we can. But again, we're at the mercy of a lot of most every team that we're trying to get on the schedule, to match their dates. And, they, I guess have a little bit of an upper hand because we're so desperate for games.
Deloney, Fiorillo, Hurley, we know their names. They're going to be big parts of the team this year. I don't have the list of every commit you have coming in this season, but I know you've got another kid out of San Diego coming in, Brenton Mills, who was in the league before, then was at Bowling Green. The big kid, Seth Joba, I think, out of the Buffalo area, is a guy that enticed me a little bit. You got the transfer that comes in out of the MAC last year, I think Fairfield. So tell me a little bit about some of the new guys.
Yeah, there's 8 new players, like I said, and 4 transfers, 4 freshmen. Of the transfers, like you said, Jace Rockmore from University of California, San Diego, played 3 years out there. He's from Las Vegas, Nevada. He'll have 2 years, 6'5" point guard. We think is kind of a Swiss Army type of guy. Can play a lot of positions, guard a lot of positions. Shamir Bogues, we're really excited about, 6'4" guard, lefty, 2-time all defensive team. Down at Tarleton State, played for Billy Gillespie, the name you might be familiar with, Kentucky, defensive-minded coach. So we're really, excited about him. TJ Long, you mentioned, was in the MAC, played 2 years at Fairfield, was 6th man of the year in the MAC, and had a really good year, really can shoot the ball, score the ball. So we're really excited about him. And so, we like the guards. It's a good balance of shooting and defensive-minded, athletic guys. Seth Joba, like you mentioned, the freshman, we have really high hopes for, 6'9", and we think he's going to be really good. See how long it takes for him to pick things up and be able to play. But I think he gives us more depth in the front court, along with Noah Barnett, the last kid we signed out of Jersey. High motor, a little raw offensively, but we think, defensively he plays really hard and played against really good competition out of Don Bosco Prep in Jersey. And so, Brenton, we talked about Brenton Mills, Binghamton, which is cool. He was in our league, so we recruited him out of high school. He was an all-league, 13 all-league kid as a sophomore. He went to Bowling Green and now comes back here. Great kid from Allen, Texas, and he's a two-way guy. And the thing, so we want to add shooting. I think all of them shoot it well. Jace really went from like a 29% shooter to a 40% shooter last year. And so Shamir can knock down shots, and Brenton, can shoot it. He shot it better at Binghamton than he did at Bowling Green, different style. But two-way players who make shots, and then TJ's elite, to go along with our other TJ and AD. Obviously, Matt Barretto shot it really well last year. Yeah. That's going to be able to stretch it out to 3-point line. So, it's important for the spacing of our offense that we have shooting. We also have to guys that can hit the paint, and then obviously everyone needs to guard. So I really like the mix. The 2 walk-ons we added. Mike Moore is a borderline division, scholarship kid. Charlie Moore, both played a really good prep programs with guys I know. And so, we think they're going to be really, really good players for our program, good program guys, and hopefully more than that. So, it's 8 new guys. And the thing that's jumped out to me, if you ask me one, like O'Leary, he looks like he's 6'9", 6'10" now, and that might be, that might not be true, but he put on 15 pounds before he left campus. Looks like he's 15 to 20 pounds up in weight. And him and Matt Barretto came in, with looking for confidence, looking to kind of break through on their potential. And, they definitely have a different swagger to them right now after winning a championship, both being a big part of it. You can see the confidence in those 2 guys. I expect them to have great years this year. But, O'Leary looks tremendous. Sammy Alamuto had a great offseason. Jackson Skipper, who redshirted, we think is going to be a great player, 6'6", 6'7", guard. And TJ we've mentioned. So I really like the blend of young guys, experienced transfers that have multiple years. And you just see it in our program. Finn, Cam Gibson, guys that have a couple years and after transferring in, really make a huge jump in that second year once they get comfortable with our system. And so I'm really excited. You never know. It's all on paper right now, but we start our summer program now, and so we'll really start to get a feel for our guys.
Coach, I hope you tell me that Cam Gibson is still around town finishing up school or something, because I won a men's league title with Trimboli. I think Cam Gibson's got a good game that would translate to men's league with his array of head fakes and things like that. I need a new teammate.
Oh, he's going to be a terrific men's league player. He's actually back in Cincinnati doing some coaching out there, some individual stuff, kind of like what Ernie does, Duncan Hoops does here in the Burlington community. But he's trying to play overseas. So all of our guys, Finn, Cam, are trying to play overseas. Robin Duncan was over in the Philippines for the last month, got his passport out there. So he has that option, but he's looking to play also overseas along with Dylan Penn. So those guys right now, all of agents, are all exploring opportunities overseas. But Cam, Robin, Duncan, all those guys are going to be, high def in the men's league for sure.
They are for sure. They've all got better options right now, but a couple years down the road, we'll see what happens. So, Coach Becker, thank you very much. Absolutely appreciate John Becker as well. It's crazy that when I started here 7 years ago or whatever, it was a big deal for a UVM player to be playing overseas. It had happened before, right? It's not like we had never seen it. Coppenrath, Sorrentine, Trimboli. Okay, we saw guys do this. But when I got here, it wasn't an everyday occurrence. Now we're at the point where almost every graduating player that played significant minutes has a real chance to play overseas. And that shows you how much the program has grown. I'm thinking back to when I first started here, right? Trey Bell-Haynes played overseas, still plays. Drew Urquhart was playing professionally. Peyton Hinson was playing professionally. Then you fast forward a little bit. Okay, you got Lamb, who's in the NBA, and then Steph Smith's playing overseas. And, now you got Ernie could have played overseas if he'd wanted to. But now, okay, all the guys you just mentioned, the Dylan Penn and Finn Sullivan and Cam Gibson, they all want to play. They all get chances to play. And Ryan Davis, this is how much the program has grown, and it's able to churn out these now professional players with relative ease and with real regularity. Tex says, I get fired up talking to Coach Becker. Am I crazy to think that this year's UVM Hoops team is going to be better than last year? I have a lot of takeaways on what Coach Becker said, but just to answer that question, no, I don't think it's crazy at all to think that this team is going to be better than last year. Now, Becker says, to his point, it's all on paper right now, right? Guys have to take the next steps, but you look at it, there's a lot returning to this team, right? They did lose a lot, and you lose three very good players, and Robin Duncan. You lose the heart of your team. You lose a guy who can rebound, defend, pass, and then you lose Penn and Sullivan. That's significant. But Deloney's here. He can score it. Matt Barretto's here. He can score it. Aliri Iofali is a guy who you should be excited about, especially from a defensive and rebounding purpose. He's an elite athlete. Okay, you got those three. Then you talk about CJ Hurley, who's a very good shooter. Certainly can be kind of the next in line of that Ernie Duncan, Kurt Steidl type. That's four. Then, there's still the other guys that were here that we didn't see a lot of last year. Sam Alamutu is an elite athlete, as he mentioned. Also Jackson Skipper, a guy who redshirted last year. So there are things that were here to be excited about. Nick Fiorillo being healthy for a full season, a guy who certainly – look, and I would love this to be the case, okay? I got a lot of grief last year from people for saying that Fiorillo wasn't going to be a huge impact when he came back from injury, right? He hurt his knee, came back from injury. I said he wasn't going to be a huge impact. I've also said that Nick Fiorillo was kind of a guard in a center's body, right? He's like me. He likes to play outside. There's no harm in that. but just because he's 6'9" doesn't mean that he's going to be a huge part down low. I love the potential dynamic here for this team this year, in that if Iliri Iafalea can be a center, right? And he is an athletic big man. He's not a three-point shooter. Fiorillo's going to get a chance to play outside where he wants to be, where he's good at, and frankly, where he belongs. So I like the matchup ability on this team. The matchup ability, the size, the more shooters on this team, it sounds like, at least early on. The transfers look like there's a good mix. And another reason why I think they're going to be better is because they are going to get more practice time. And that's where I'm going to go with my very first takeaway next. John Becker talking about the scheduling was something that really stood out to me. I'll tell you why next on the Brady Farkas Show, brought to you by Fecto Homes on WDEV.
Hi, Albert here from Waterbury Service Center on Main Street. We're seeing a lot of out-of-town customers on vacation here. Glad you're here. However, they're stopping here because of car problems. When you're headed out on vacation, stop here at Waterbury Service Center first. We'll check your hoses, your belts, thermostat to make sure there's no coolant leaks and make sure you have enough coolant for the trip. If the coolant is low or undegraded and the thermostat's sticking, you could have overheating problems. So thank you for your continued support. Serving you well is important to us. See you soon at Waterbury Service Center on Main Street.
For some people, all they need to know about weather is the high temperature for the day. But if you're one of those people who really wants to understand the hows and whys of weather, especially here in the Green Mountain State, then Roger Hill's Weather Classroom podcast is for you. Some of the topics I'll explore are the types of precipitation, global temperature averages, and tropical cyclones. Roger Hill's Weather Classroom podcast is available at WDEVradio.com, Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music.
Here's one Vermonter's true tobacco story.
I'm Chris from Burlington. I quit smoking about a year and a half ago, and ironically enough, it was one of these commercials that got me to call the quit line. Being a DJ, there are definitely plenty of temptations to smoke. Now, with the you can't smoke in bars law, I find that it's much easier not to smoke because it became difficult. You know, when am I going to sneak out my next cigarette between records? You'd have to play a long record, or you'd have to find enough time where you could escape and get back.
So you save time by not smoking, but I'll bet you save a lot of money, too.
I find that I spend it just as fast on other things that I enjoy. So I guess I have more stuff. Started buying more records with the money that I had to play with. I've buried myself in piles of vinyl at this point.
So what advice would you give to someone who wanted to spend their money on something other than cigarettes?
And if you're serious about quitting smoking, you should definitely call the Vermont Quit Line, 1-877-YES-QUIT.
If you're getting ready to quit smoking, call the Vermont Quit Line toll-free at 1-877-YES-QUIT or visit tobaccostories.org. Brought to you by the Vermont Department of Health.
Hi, folks. This is Peter Burke. Join Joel Nashman and me in the garden Saturdays at 12:30. Don't try to do it alone in your garden. Call in with questions, for advice, or just to share your successes in the garden.
Brought to you in part by Menard's family-owned True Value Store, Brooklyn Street, Morrisville. Clausen's Florist Greenhouse and Perennial Farm in Colchester. And Sticks and Stuff in Swanton Lumber, Vermont's largest independent home center. Go to sticksandstuff.com for store locations and hours.
Hi, this is David from Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity. When you donate to the Habitat Restore in Williston, you're helping Habitat for Humanity build affordable homes in our community. Donating to the Williston Habitat Restore is easy. Items can be brought directly to the store, or we pick up large items for free, and donations are tax deductible. Help us make a difference in our community by donating housewares, furniture, appliances, even art. If you own a business and need to get rid of large items, think of the Habitat for Humanity Restore. Visit VermontHabitat.org.
Make your opinion heard by texting onto the Brady Farkas Show at 802-585-3026.
Now it's back to the Brady Farkas Show on WDEV AM, FM, and WDEVradio.com.
Welcome back in, Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV AM and FM, WDEVradio.com. We've got 25 minutes or so left in the show. Jazz with George Thomas comes up. Full show for him from 7 until 9. Red Sox are back at it again tomorrow. They'll take on the Miami Marlins. Disappointing series for the Sox this weekend in Chicago. We'll talk more about that later as well. But I do want to put the touches here on some of my observations on the interview with John Becker, the UVM men's basketball coach. The thing that stuck out to me most was about the schedule on two different fronts here. One, John Becker does not want to do to his team what they did a year ago. All the travel, the bebopping around, like I'm remembering last year, and I may have the order of this wrong, but the team started in California. Okay, did a 3-game stretch in California. There was St. Mary's, Cal State Fullerton, and USC, right? So 3 games in California. You're out there playing like 3 games in 5 or 6 days, right? That's crazy. It's physically demanding. You're away from home. You're away from school. You're on the road. You're traveling a bunch there, down the California coastline. So then they came back to the East Coast, as I recall, and they had to play Iona at Mohegan Sun, and they got walloped. Then they went down to the Bahamas, and they played those 4 games, whatever, in the tournament. It was like they were never here. He talks about being on the road for like 17 of 19 days or 19 of 21 days or something like that. The team was gassed. And John Becker says, this year, we don't want to do that. So he's like, look, we're trying to get more games at home. We're trying to get more games in the Northeast. We're trying to do a little less travel. We're trying to have our guys be in better condition, be in better shape, better with their schoolwork then by extension. That's all good. I found that interesting. I also find it interesting and beneficial. So when the texter says, oh, do you think the Catamounts can be better than they were a year ago? And one of the reasons I say yes is they're going to get more early season practice. I eventually realized it last year, but I didn't realize it early enough. Part of the reason UVM looked so bad last year at the beginning of the season, I think they were 1-7, is because they didn't get any practice time. Right? When you were on the road for 19 of 21 days and you're traveling in planes, you're not practicing much, right? You're having entire days devoted to travel where you don't get on the gym floor at all. Then you're in someone else's gym playing as a road team, and you're in there for an hour. You're not getting real practice. It's all walkthrough. Then you get guys that are, you're prioritizing the games. So maybe they're sitting out of practice, or maybe they're sitting out a segment of practice, or you're going practice a little lighter because you've got a game to come up the next day. UVM looked bad at the beginning of the year. UVM didn't practice at the beginning of the year. So Becker says we're trying to change up that dynamic this year. We want more games in December, less games in November. So November we can practice more. We can practice more, practice early, cross our I's, dot our T's, be on our P's and Q's. By the time we really get into the teeth of the schedule, we can have really worked on things. We can have really built team chemistry. And with 8 new players, a lot of which are going to figure to play a significant role on this team, you're going to need team chemistry to be built up. You're going to need a team that learns about each other. And you can do that in practice in a less pressure-filled environment where you can truly get better and you can identify things. I mean, Becker's right. Last year, you look at it, they played a bunch of games in November. They come back after Thanksgiving in December, and I think we only saw them like twice in all of December at UVM at home. I remember going to the game right before Christmas Eve against Toledo. There might have been one other home game in December. So he wants more regionally based games with less travel. He wants more games spread out so they can actually practice. Those 2 things are very, very good for the program. And I do think it's going to yield good results. And when he talks about the transfers, man, I'm getting geeked up now. Because look, I don't know any of these players from Adam, but I've watched some of the highlights on YouTube. I've read the resumes. He's talking about them. When you tell me that you bring in, a guy who was 6th man of the year in a MAC, better league than you're playing as an underclassman, I get excited. That's the kid from Fairfield, TJ Ford, I want to say. Then you go and get a kid who's a defensive player, who's an all-conference defensive player. That makes me excited. You get a guy who is you go get the kid, Seth Joba, who's a big kid who I like now. So now you've got multiple big guys there. This is just, I am very excited. I'm very excited about where this team is at. I like the players they brought in. I like they all have years of eligibility, multiple years of eligibility. I like that more practice time. That's all good to me. That is all good to me. And I do think this team is going to be good. And, both the men and the women have significant challenges in front of them. UVM women without Catherine Gilby, who handles the point. UVM men, again, creating that chemistry, finding that culture, developing a new leader in Aaron Deloney. That all is going to take time. But I think they both have a chance still to be really good. I think the men I feel better about. And that's not an indictment on the women. I think Elisa Kresge is a great coach. I think they have great players. Catherine Gilby is that big a loss. Okay, I do worry about how they will replace her. I feel more confident now in the men winning the league at this point. Again, we're 9 months removed from a conference championship Friday and Saturday. Right now, I feel better about the men because I've seen it done before where they can plug and play and they can replace and they can do it all over again. With the women, they're very good. Catherine Gilby's also very good. And her being out for the year, that's a humongous loss. And that's a very big loss to get over. As for the schedule itself for the men, I'm trying to think. It is incomplete at this point. So I was taking notes as Becker talked. Brown, Yale, Dartmouth, Colgate, Northeastern. That's 5. You're going to have Toledo again. That's 6. You're going to have the tournament, which is going to get you 3 to 4, probably 3. That would be 9. You're probably going to have some Patsy D3 school like you always do. That would be 10. And then there's probably 4 to 5 games left. Becker said he hasn't heard on anything on the high major front. You're looking probably at least 2 that you want there. That would be 12. There's really still probably the 5 games left here to fill. 4 to 5 games left to fill. We'll see how they're able to do it. But again, the schedule has taken some time this year. We haven't heard a lot. We're just starting to get the breadcrumbs. We're just starting to get the breadcrumbs. It's the Brady Farkas Show. We're brought to you by Fecto Homes. The Air Auto Sales text line is open at 802-585-3026 or on North Main Street in Barrie, online at airoutosales.com. All right, Red Sox, I mean, what can you say? Just a very disappointing road trip. The Red Sox finished 3-4 on the road trip. 3-4 on the road trip against 2 teams that were under 500, Minnesota and Chicago. 3-4 on the road trip after starting out 2-0. They went just 1-4 the rest of the way. That is very disappointing. The Red Sox had a chance to make a statement that they were really good, and instead they made a statement that they are increasingly average and mediocre. And I know they're dealing with injuries, and I know guys are banged up, and the pitching staff has been a problem, and they've lost Pablo Reyes. I get it. But the Red Sox had a chance, 2-0 on this road trip. They had a chance to make a big-time statement to the American League and the American League playoff picture, and instead they made a statement, all right, that they're an average baseball team. That's just where they're at. Okay? They are in the mix. They are in the playoff race. We're going to continue to talk about them in the hunt column of the playoff chatter. They're not out of it. I still think they should buy, but they are an average baseball team, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 4 steps forward, 3 steps back. 3 steps back, 2 steps forward. They just end up in the same place. They are an average team, right? A lot like my Mariners. My Mariners are the exact same. My Mariners got back to 500 at 37-37, had a chance to win the series against Baltimore, dropped the last 2. Mariners had a chance to go 4-2 or 3-3 on a 6-game road trip through Baltimore and New York, which would be a great accomplishment. They finished 2-4. That's what average teams do. They let opportunities slip away. Okay? They let opportunities slip away. Red Sox lost in extras, or on a walk-off, I should say, on Saturday. Lost yesterday. Didn't hit a guy who's an opener in Tanner Banks, who a lot of people have never heard of. It's disappointing. It's a disappointing weekend. It's a disappointing road trip. And now you come home to face the Marlins. And look, the Marlins are a team we think of as garbage. Marlins are quietly leading the National League wildcard picture right now. Okay, because they play in the same division as the Braves, nobody talks about them. But the Marlins are a good team. Now, you're going to be able to avoid the young rookie Aori Perez probably, but it's a team with the reigning Cy Young winner in the National League in Sandy Alcantara, not pitching well this year. Still has a great pedigree, and has a guy in Luis Arias who's hitting .399 this season, who's trying to become the first player to hit 400 in a season since 1941. Right? Ted Williams hit .406 in 1941. Luis Arias is hitting .399 right now. You have the best hitter in the National League coming to town. You have a great power threat in Jorge Soler. And you have the reigning Cy Young winner coming into your place tomorrow night. This is not a a guaranteed get-right series here against the Marlins. The Marlins are a good team. Marlins are a good team, and they can do some damage to you. And the Red Sox can't afford to have damage done to them. The time for look, we're almost at the halfway point of the season. We can't sit here and say, "Oh, it's early" anymore. It's not early. We're almost 81 games into this season. It's time to make some moves. It's time to make moves for my Mariners. It's time to make moves for my Red Sox. You can't just sit and say, "Okay, hey, this one stunk. We'll get him later." That time is done. You're out of those opportunities. When you're the Tampa Bay Rays and you start out, 20-4 or whatever, you can take some things on the chin later in the season because you built up so much equity. The Red Sox forfeited a lot of equity early in the season. They need to win, and they need to win now. They're 40-39. They're still over 500. You look at the wild card, they are in a position where they're 3 games back. They were a game and a half back just the other day, though. They have forfeited opportunities, and they are not good enough to be forfeiting opportunities. That's just where we're at. We'll talk to TC this week. We'll talk to Buster this week. We'll see what they say. But it's a very disappointing road trip through 2 very winnable series. You split with Minnesota after you had a 2-0 series lead. You lose to Chicago. It's a Chicago team that right now is so injured and battered, they have about 2 good offensive players, Robert and Jimenez. And Robert single-handedly killed you yesterday. Okay? Single-handedly, he killed you yesterday. He forfeited the opportunity. Right now, it is 6:45. Again, Jazz with George Thomas is coming up next here on DEV. Eye on the World with John Batchelor follows him. That'll be on at 9 o'clock. Remember, let's see. Tomorrow, we're off the air at 6:10. Wednesday, we're off the air at 6:10. Thursday, we have no show. It's because the Marlins and the Red Sox start early. They actually start the game at 6:10. The first pitch is 5:10. So we'll be off the air entirely on Thursday, but we'll have short shows the next 2 days. Brad Stevens spoke this weekend about what he wants to see from Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown this offseason. Also talked about the idea of giving Brown and Tatum some say in what happens organizationally. We'll talk about what Stevens had to say. We'll do it next on the Brady Farkas Show, brought to you by Fecto Homes.
Are you looking to get rid of your used mobile home? Here at Fecto Homes, we don't just sell new mobile homes, we also buy used. If you have a used mobile home that you are looking to sell, we can either accept it as trade and apply the value to a new home with us or purchase it outright. We offer fair prices and quick removal of your mobile home. So reach out to us for a quote today. Fecto Homes, 350 River Street, Montpelier, or visit us at fectohomes.com for more information.
If you came across a child struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you recognize a 13-year-old boy who gets into fights at school?
Not because he's a boy, but because he's hungry.
Or a 2-year-old girl who cries all night?
Not because she's sick, but because she went to bed without enough to eat.
Or maybe a 9-year-old boy who hopes a friend invites him to a sleepover?
Not for fun, just so we can have dinner.
Or a 15-year-old girl who goes for walks over lunch,
so her friends won't know she doesn't have anything to eat.
I am the 1 in 7 American children who struggle with hunger. Kids who pass by every day but never knew we're hungry. I am child hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungryInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Tracy Schamberger describes her experience advertising with WDEV.
When WDEV presented A12 with an opportunity to co-present a weekly live interview, we jumped at the opportunity. We see a direct increase in calls to our helpline because of our spot on WDEV, which is exactly what we had hoped for. We've experienced incredible results.
Interested in advertising on WDEV? Contact us at WDEV@radiovermont.com.
This is the sound of giraffes facing problems like habitat destruction and poaching. This is the sound of giraffes under consideration to be listed on the endangered species list for the very first time. This is the sound of wild populations plummeting by nearly 40% over the last 30 years.
When is that going to happen? This summer? This summer. So like right now, that's it. And then I'm coming back and drafting.
This is the sound of a silent extinction. Help giraffes break the silence by joining San Diego Zoo Global Wildlife Conservancy at endextinction.org and be heard for the herd.
I feel like if you're a baseball fan, it's not accessible to you.
Want Brady to hear your opinion on the sports stories of the day? Text in at 802-585-3026.
This is Freddie Coleman of ESPN, and you're listening to Brady Farkas Show right here on WDEV and WDEVradio.com.
Thank you very much, Freddie. We'll hear from Freddie later this week as well. A couple minutes left in Jazz with George Thomas. Earlier this weekend, Brad Stevens, Celtics president of basketball operations, was talking about the trade of trade of Marcus Smart for Kristaps Porzingis. He also was talking about what he wants to see from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum this offseason. Here were his thoughts on the two Jays and their plans moving forward.
Do have to get away. I mean, we were all the emotional roller coaster of any season, but the emotional roller coaster of this season and the way it started and the way it ended was really tough. And so for, I think, all of us, and I'm looking forward to my time, but
a smart way of Brad Stevens to say that, but that this year was very, very tumultuous, right? They're all tumultuous in their own way. You spend, I mean, look, season starts in mid-October, goes through mid-June. You're talking about, that is a 8-month season there where you're playing, 3 games a week, where you're traveling all the time. That in and of itself is stressful. Then you factor in your head coach gets fired right before the season. You have no idea why, or you don't know officially why. You don't have that now that situation's hanging over your head. You have a new coach and Joe Mazzulla you're breaking in. You have the general Boston media stuff. You have the climate of the world in general, just that we're in, and how that now sports is part of that, right? Sports used to be separate from, in a lot of ways, from politics and things like that. Not anymore. So players are being brought into other conversations that they're not necessarily used to or that it wouldn't have been in the past. It's a very hectic year. So just a chance to step back and catch your breath, I think is smart of Brad Stevens to say that. And I don't know what I would do if I were the players. I mean, if I were Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I wouldn't want to pick up a ball until the middle of July. Now, I'm sure they can't do that. They can't take a full month off. But I would want to have a month off. I couldn't even look at a basketball for a month. But I'm sure these guys have to be back in the gym, 2 weeks later at most. That's just the way it is. The off season now isn't really an off season. The off season is get better time. And when you play as deep as the Celtics did and as deep as they regularly do, your off seasons are fairly short. So if you get eliminated in April, then you may be able to take a month off. You get eliminated in June, you don't get that much time off because the season comes right back around again quicker than you want it to. I mean, I can't believe, look, it's almost July 1st. In 3 months, we're going to be talking about an NBA season starting again. That is insane to me. I mean, we're going to have preseason NBA games in 3 months from now. Summer League in the NBA is going to start like in a week and a half. Summer League starts in like a week and a half, which is, there truly doesn't feel like an off season in the NBA. That is for sure. Finally, let me go here. A little PSA for you all. I encourage you, it starts in 7 minutes. I encourage you to watch the College World Series tonight. If you're not watching it, tonight's the night to watch. It's game 3 of a 3-game series. It's winner take all between Florida and LSU. Okay. LSU won the first game in extra innings. Florida put up 24 runs yesterday to send us to game 3. You are going to see elite talent all over the field in this game. The projected top 3 picks in the draft, according to ESPN's mock draft, are all on the field tonight. You got Paul Skenes, the guy who's a pitcher for LSU, who might go number 1 overall. He won't start this game, but he might appear. Then you got an outfielder, Dylan Cruz, for LSU. and you got an outfielder for Florida as well. So you have the top 3 projected picks in the draft all playing tonight. You have a winner-take-all championship. The Red Sox are off tonight. So if you're looking for something to watch today, my PSA to you is the College World Series. There's nothing quite like the ping of the bat in Omaha. The tournament started 10 days ago or so. It ends tonight. Getting to Omaha is my ultimate bucket list item of things left to do for me as a sports fan. I would rather go to the College World Series than I would go to a Super Bowl. I mean, that's the God's honest truth. I've been to the World Series. I've been to NCAA tournament games. I've been to March Madness. I've sat courtside for UVM game. I've done a lot of cool things sports-wise. Never been to Omaha. Tonight is a night I wish I was there. Just a championship night. Hard to believe. Awesome to think about too. I love the College World Series. So, a couple other things here, kind of quickly here, just kind of to news dump it at the end of the show. Podcast channel, Apple Podcast, Spotify. Continue to give your support there. Remember, Apple Podcast, Spotify. You can check us out. Our website is back up and running. Some of you had pointed out that our website had been down for quite a while. It worked with some workarounds to things, but it is up and functioning. It looks different. It's a brand new website. So good stuff there at WDEVradio.com. You can always stream us both on your smart speaker and online at WDEVradio.com. John Becker's interview is already up, I'm told, on our podcast channel, so you can check that out. JB was great talking about the schedule, the new guys on the team, where the program's at. Justin Mazzulla getting a job at the Utah Jazz. So all things Catamount Hoops with John Becker. We got short shows tomorrow and Wednesday and no show on Thursday, so we'll have a lot to get to over the course of the next couple of days. Jazz with George Thomas is coming up next. He's on from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock. I'm sure it's somebody great's birthday, Louis Armstrong or Thelonious Monk or somebody from New Orleans. I'm sure we're going to hear all about Jazz with George Thomas. Always comes with a history lesson, too. So that's one of the reasons why I like it and why you like it as well. And then it's Eye on the World with John Becker. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe out there if it's raining where you are, and I will see you tomorrow here on WDEV AM and FM and WDEVradio.com.
I got Memorial Valley Ford, right, kid?